Story 1. The tattooed intruder extended. The oppressive July heat became unbearable last year when my house's electrical system catastrophically failed. Sparks hissed behind the walls before everything plunged into darkness. 4-5 suffocating days I was marooned without power. Working remotely transformed from convenience to crisis. Deadlines loomed like storm clouds. Desperate, I scoured Airbnb. My town's offerings were sparse, forcing me to choose a listing 45 minutes away, a grim, boxy bungalow huddled in a part of the county locals called The Hollow, known more for its boarded-up storefronts than hospitality. The price was the only beacon in the gloom. Exhaustion dragged at my bones as I finally arrived. The air inside was thick and stale. I bypassed the cramped living room, its shadows clinging to cheap furniture, and collapsed onto the unfamiliar bed, sleep claiming me before my head hit the pillow. Morning light, gray and weak, filtered through grimy windows. I set up a makeshift office at a rickety desk, the laptop's glow my sole focus until a sharp rap shattered the silence. My breath hitched. Peering through the fisheye lens, I saw him, early 30s, lean build, under a stained tank top, arms and neck, a tapestry of faded, intricate tattoos. Nothing about him whispered host or salesman. His eyes, dark and restless, scanned the porch. A primal unease coiled in my gut. I retreated silently, burying myself in spreadsheets and video calls, the knock echoing in my mind. The workday bled into evening, the glow of the screen my lonely companion, until well past 8 p.m., fetching a cold dinner from a distant drive-thru. I returned to the unsettling quiet just as the first bite touched my lips. Rap louder, more insistent. Ice water flooded my veins. Through the peephole, the same tattooed figure stood bathed in the porch light's sickly yellow glow. Annoyance warred with a deeper, colder fear. I backed away, locking the deadbolt with trembling fingers. Appetite gone. Around 1 a.m., wired on stress and stale coffee, I donned headphones, blasting white noise to drown the silence and my own dread. An hour later, bleary-eyed, I shut the laptop. Utter darkness enveloped me, the room suddenly feeling vast and menacing. Fumbling for the hallway switch, the light flared, illuminating a horror that froze me mid-step. Etched in grime across the worn carpet were muddy footprints, not just near the door, a trail snaked down the hall, circled behind the desk where I'd sat for hours, and led towards the back of the house. Terror, pure and electric, locked my joints. I followed the prints on numb legs, each step amplifying. The frantic drumming in my chest, they stopped at the back door, left slightly ajar, the night air whispering through the gap. Before I could react, a slow, deliberate creak sounded from the staircase. Step, pause, step, pause. My eyes snapped upwards. At the bottom stair, a figure materialized from the gloom. It was him. Recognition slammed into me. The tattoos, the sharp angles of his face. His initial surprise at seeing me standing there twisted instantly, grotesquely, into raw, snarling rage. His lips peeled back, eyes burning with malice. I tried to speak, to scream, but only a dry gasp escaped. My body acted before my mind could. I whirled, slammed through the flimsy back door, and sprinted blindly into the overgrown yard. Branches clawed at me as I plunged into the tree line, collapsing behind a thick oak. Frantically, I fumbled for my phone, thumb hovering over 911. Then, the unmistakable crunch of running footsteps on dry leaves, close, terrifyingly close. I pressed myself into the earth, breath held. He tore past my hiding spot, a dark shape, vanishing into the deeper woods. Shaking uncontrollably, I made the call. Waiting for the police back at the bungalow, every shadow seemed to writhe. They found him the next day. The tattoos confirmed his identity linked to multiple brutal home invasions. He hadn't just been watching, he'd been inside, circling me like prey. The thought of what he planned, why he waited, it haunts the edges of my sleep. Story 2. The Decade Dead. Gas station extended. The cross-country drive was meant to be an adventure, punctuated by a crucial work meeting in Maine and visits to scattered friends. By day 4, Pennsylvania's endless, monotonous side roads were wearing me down. These weren't highways. They were neglected ribbons of cracked asphalt, hemmed in by walls of dense forest or sprawling empty fields. Dusk bled into night, and a cold, insistent rain began to sheet down, reducing visibility to a murky tunnel illuminated by my headlights. The fuel gauge needle dipped relentlessly below the red line. Panic fluttered in my chest. Miles had passed, without a single sign of civilization, just the hypnotic swish of wipers and the drumming rain. Just as despair threatened to take hold, my headlights caught a faded, leaning sign. GAS, 1 mile. Relief, sharp and sweet, washed over me. Moments later, the station materialized like a ghost ship in the fog. It huddled off the road, swallowed by ancient, dripping pines. Only 2 skeletal pumps stood sentinel before a tiny, dilapidated cinder block building, its windows dark eyes. A single feeble bulb glowed weakly above the boarded-up concession door. It looked forgotten, but necessity overrode unease. I pulled in, the tires crunching on gravel, slick with rain and oil stains. Stepping out into the downpour, I was instantly soaked. Grabbing the pump handle felt like grasping something dead. The screen was blank, lifeless. Wiping grime away revealed nothing. No lights, no prompts. The second pump was identical, a cold, unresponsive hunk of metal. Frustration curdled into dread. Peering through the grimy concession window, I saw only deeper shadows. But then, deep within the building, a faint, flickering orange light pulsed like a candle or kerosene lamp. Hope warred with instinct, maybe a caretaker. I dashed from the pump's scant shelter to the concession door. The glass was fogged and streaked. I couldn't see in. The metal handle was icy and it shrieked in protest as I pulled. The smell hit me first, damp rot, decay, and something vaguely chemical. Inside was chaos. Shelves were toppled, stripped bare, or piled with unrecognizable debris. Dust lay thick, undisturbed for years, except for muddy footprints leading towards the back. The light came from a small, dirty hurricane lamp sitting on a broken counter, casting long, dancing shadows that made the wreckage seem alive. This wasn't abandoned, it was violated. A primal alarm screamed in my head. I stumbled backward, tripping over debris, and burst back out into the rain. Blinking water from my eyes, I turned towards my car. A figure stood beside it, motionless, drenched to the bone. They were intently peering into my driver's side window, hands cupped around their face against the glass. "Hey!" My shout ripped through the downpour. The figure flinched, turning slowly. Their eyes met mine, then flickered past my shoulder, widening slightly. I whirled. The concession door was wide open. Another man stood, silhouetted, their long, lank black hair plastered to a gaunt, sallow face. His eyes wide and unnaturally bright, locked onto mine. He didn't hesitate. He launched himself off the step, sprinting straight at me with terrifying speed, his boots churning mud. The figure by my car melted back into the shadows near the tree line. Pure adrenaline surged. I wrenched the car door open, threw myself inside, and fumbled the key. The engine roared to life as the gaunt man reached my door. His fingers scrabbled at the handle. I slammed the gear shift into drive and stomped the accelerator. Tires spun, caught, and the car lurched forward. As I pulled away, a horrifying, metallic screech tore through the car like a blade dragged along the door panel. I didn't look back. I drove white-knuckled through the storm until the engine coughed, sputtered, and died, coasting to a stop on the desolate roadside. Shaking, I called for help. Later, under the harsh lights of a tow truck, I saw it, a deep, jagged gouge, running the length of the driver's door. The police confirmed the chilling truth the next day. That gas station hadn't pumped fuel in over a decade. The men, the lamp, the footprints, the knife scrape on my door, what waited in that decaying building, what they intended for anyone foolish enough to step inside, those answers are lost to the rain and the dark Pennsylvania woods. Story 3. The unfinished community extended. Visiting my college buddy. Chris in his sleepy hometown 10 months ago was supposed to be a relaxing escape. On my last night, fueled by nostalgia and cheap beer, Chris leaned in conspiratorially. "There's this place," he murmured, eyes gleaming. "Been wanting to check it out for ages. Rumored abandoned development deep in the woods. Like a ghost town. Almost want to go." Our shared history of sketchy college explorations kicked in. "Hell yeah," I agreed. 30 minutes later, headlamps. Cutting swaths through the encroaching twilight, we were crunching down a fading trail. After 20 minutes, the path vanished, forcing us to push through thick undergrowth guided only by Chris's vague memory of a map. The air grew thick and still. The only sounds are labored breathing and snapping twigs. An hour in, the trees thinned abruptly, revealed in a large, unnaturally flat clearing, where houses, not ancient ruins, but modern structures in various stages of incompletion. Split levels, ranches, even a mock tutor, all bearing the brutal scars of abandonment. Vinyl siding hung in tatters, windows gaped like empty eye sockets. Some front doors stood wide open. Graffiti, crude tags, and unsettling murals defaced the walls. A network of narrow, weed-choked gravel roads connected them, ending abruptly. At the tree line, it wasn't old, it was unfinished. Eerie. We approached the nearest house, a 2-story colonial. The front door yawned open. Inside, the skeletal remains of drywall were visible beneath peeling paint. Weeds thrust defiantly through cracks in the concrete subfloor. The silence was absolute. Heavy. We stepped cautiously into the foyer. Kerr AASH. The sound exploded from deeper within the development. A colossal metallic bang echoing through the trees like a gunshot. We froze, hearts hammering against our ribs, instinctively ducking. Our headlamp beams swept the gravel road leading away from us, piercing the gloom. Nothing moved. The silence rushed back, thicker, more oppressive than before. "What the hell was that?" Chris breathed. We waited, straining our ears. Only the sigh of wind through the pines answered. Shaken but unwilling to bail yet, we ventured further into the house. Upstairs was a tomb. Darkness clung to the short hallway. The first bedroom was empty, echoing hollowly. As we turned towards the second door, a new sound froze us. The unmistakable crunch of footsteps on gravel and dry grass. Slow, deliberate, getting closer to this house. We exchanged a terrified glance and retreated deeper into the upstairs shadows. Pressing ourselves against the flimsy bedroom wall, the footsteps stopped just outside the front door. Silence stretched, taut as a wire. Then a voice raspy and uneven, like stones grating together. "Hello, in there." Chris gripped my arm hard. "Just want to talk. No harm done." The voice was old, missing teeth maybe, and held a strange, forced casualness. Another agonizing minute of silence followed. We didn't dare breathe. Had he entered? Was he listening? The silence became a physical pressure. Finally, Chris gestured. He crept, silent as a ghost, down the stairs. He peered around the corner towards the open front door. When he looked back up at me, his face was bloodless in the headlamp glow. He mouthed, "No one." I crept down, disbelief warring with terror. He was right. The doorway was empty, framing only the dark clearing and the other skeletal houses. But there, in the patchy grass illuminated by our beams, were footprints. Clear. Impressions leading to the doorway, and none leading away. The realization hit us simultaneously. He wasn't outside. He was inside the house with us. Panic erupted. We didn't speak, we just ran. We crashed through the back of the house, tearing through brambles and low branches, not caring about noise, only distance. We didn't stop until the clearing was far behind us and the town lights glimmered in the distance. Who was he? Why the lie about talking? What was in that house he didn't want us to see? Or what was he planning to do? The unfinished community holds its secrets, and the man with no footprints walks its gravel roads in our nightmares. Story 4. The Missing Hiker Extended. Backpacking the remote Cascade Ridge Trail was a pilgrimage, a challenging 3-day out, promising solitude and breathtaking vistas. I savored the isolation, the rhythm of my boots on the dirt path, the scent of pine. On day 3, nearing the high alpine basin that marked the trail's end, I passed a designated campsite. A lone tent stood there, a man in his late 40s, sitting by a smoldering fire. "Hey," I called, pausing for water. "Headed to the peak?" he asked, offering a weary smile. "Yeah, camping up there tonight," I replied. "Same, but tomorrow," he said, stretching. "Name's Ben. Might see you up top, definitely." I smiled. "Safe travels." I pushed on, reaching the basin as the sun dipped low, painting the snow-capped peaks in fiery hues. The promised view stole my breath. Utter solitude. All day, no one passed. As I settled in for my rest day, I wondered about Ben. He never arrived. Maybe he changed his plan, I reasoned, or just enjoyed his spot longer. Leaving the next morning was harder than expected. A deep, unfamiliar soreness had settled into my legs overnight, slowing my descent. The trail seemed steeper, longer. Dusk fell faster than anticipated. By the time I strapped on my headlamp, the forest had become an inky labyrinth. Navigating by the narrow beam, I focused on reaching Ben's campsite, hoping for a flat spot to pitch my tent. Finally, the familiar clearing emerged. Ben's tent stood exactly as before, a silent blue dome. In the gloom, an unsettling stillness hung in the air. No fire, no light inside. "Ben," I called, my voice swallowed by the trees. "You okay in there?" No answer. Unease prickled my skin. I approached cautiously. The tent flap wasn't fully zipped. Hanging, slightly open, shining my light inside revealed an empty sleeping bag. Neatly rolled gear, abandoned. A cold lump formed in my throat. This was wrong. Deeply wrong. Backpackers don't leave gear behind. My headlamp beam swept the campsite perimeter, catching on a faint glimmer deep within the trees, maybe 40 yards away. A tiny, dying light. Pulsing weakly, driven by a morbid dread, I left the trail and pushed through the undergrowth towards the light. It was a headlamp, lying on its side in the moss, its beam faint and guttering, nearly out of batteries. As I knelt, intending to pick it up, maybe evidence, a chilling sensation crawled up my spine, the feeling of being watched. I slowly raised my head, sweeping my own light. There, 10 yards away, half hidden behind a massive Douglas fir, stood a figure, motionless. Not Ben, taller, thinner, draped in dark, non-hiking clothes. He made no sound, offered no greeting. His face was in shadow, but his posture screamed hostility. "Hello," my voice cracked. Do you you need help?" The figure remained utterly still, a statue carved from the forest night. Terror seized me. "I'm sorry," I stammered, backing away slowly. "I'll leave. I'll just go." I turned and practically fled back to the campsite, stumbling over roots. I didn't bother pitching my tent. I threw my pack on and practically ran down the trail, driven by adrenaline, not stopping until I reached the next campsite 3 miles down, collapsing in exhausted terror. I reported it at the first ranger station at dawn. Ben was officially listed as missing. The headlamp was his. The police found no other trace. The man in the trees. No sign. The backcountry swallowed Ben whole, and the silent watcher in the woods holds the only key to what happened on that dark mountainside. The probable scenario is too terrible to voice aloud. Story 5. The walkway watcher extended. Booking an Airbnb in an unfamiliar town for a single night felt routine. A client meeting, a quick overnight, then back home. The 3-hour drive ended as I pulled into the driveway of a modest, 2-story house nestled on a quiet, tree-lined street. It was twilight, and the neighborhood felt unnervingly still. Most houses were dark, curtains drawn. Ancient oaks crowded the lawns, casting deep, shifting shadows that seemed to absorb the streetlights. As I got out, stretching stiff limbs, movement caught my eye. Far down the street, maybe 3 houses away, a figure walked slowly along the sidewalk. Nothing overtly suspicious. Jeans, dark hoodie pulled up, but an inexplicable chill ran down my spine. Their gait seemed ... measured, observant, shaking it off as travel fatigue. I grabbed my suitcase and unlocked the front door. Inside was standard fare, clean, functional, impersonal. I did a quick walkthrough. Kitchen, living room, bedroom, small bath. Satisfied, I remembered my laptop bag still in the car. Stepping back onto the porch, I instinctively looked down the street. The figure had stopped. They were standing perfectly still in the middle of the road, facing directly towards the Airbnb. My breath caught. As I started walking towards my car, they abruptly turned and resumed walking, disappearing around a distant corner. Heart pounding now, I retrieved the bag, double-checked the front door lock, and even pulled my car into the garage, sealing it shut. The mundane routine of unpacking and settling in couldn't shake the unease. Twice in the next hour, I peeked through the blinds. No sign of the watcher. Exhausted, I finally went to bed. My alarm blared at 4 a.m. Groggy, I sat up in the unfamiliar bed. Darkness pressed against the windows. And then I saw it. A thin, bright line of light glowing under the bedroom door. The hallway light was on. I distinctly remembered turning everything off. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. I swung my legs out of bed, padding silently towards the door. Just as my hand touched the cool metal knob, I heard it. A soft shuffling sound in the hallway outside. Like fabric brushing against the wall, my blood ran cold. I turned the knob slowly, opening the door a crack. The hall light was blinding. The shuffling sound came again, from the direction of the living room. Heart hammering, I crept down the short hall, each step an eternity. I peered around the corner into the living room. A man was crouched in the corner, his back partially to me. He was rifling through my open laptop bag, dark hoodie, ripped jeans, the walker. Recognition slammed into me. He sensed my presence. He dropped the bag and turned slowly. There was no surprise on his face, none. His eyes, flat and cold, met mine. It was a look of expectation, of readiness. "Stay right there," he commanded, his voice low and gravelly. He started moving towards me, not rushing, but with predatory intent. Every instinct screamed run. I spun and bolted back towards the bedroom. He lunged, but I slammed the door shut a fraction of a second before he reached it. The impact shook the frame. Thud. He threw his weight against it. Crack, a kick landed near the lock. Then came the terrifying, metallic scrape and click of something. Probing the lock mechanism, he's picking it. Panic seized me. The window, I scrambled across the room, fumbling with the latch, throwing it open. I didn't hesitate. I tumbled out into the frigid pre-dawn air, landing hard on damp grass. Scrambling. To my feet, I ran blindly down the street until I found a lit convenience store and called 911. The police found the front door ajar, the bedroom door open, the lock clearly forced. My laptop bag and suitcase were gone. The officer's words chilled me more than the morning air. This wasn't just a robbery. The way he was waiting, the forced entry ... He targeted you, be careful. The image of his cold, expectant eyes as he turned haunts me. He wasn't just after my laptop. He wanted me, and he knows where I live. The fear isn't just of theft. It's the terrifying certainty that he had a far darker plan, interrupted by my escape, and the dread that he might still be looking. Story 6. William's campsite extended my secret lake sanctuary. 4 hours north was my spring ritual, a small, pristine gem nestled deep in pine forests, unknown and untouched. This year, arriving on a crisp Friday afternoon, I had the place to myself. Perfect. I set up my tent on the familiar grassy beach. The lake a mirror reflecting the clear blue sky. Serenity reigned, ... Until late afternoon, a figure emerged from the woods on the opposite shore, maybe 200 yards away. He efficiently set up a small dome tent. Another camper, disappointing, but not unexpected forever. He seemed normal enough, keeping to himself. As the sun began its descent, painting the water gold, I saw him start walking around the lake perimeter towards me. Friendly wave. "Hey there," he called, smiling. "Saw you setting up. Name's William. Didn't know if you saw me or not. Just figured I'd say hi, since it's pretty rare to share this spot." He was 26, like me, easy go. We chatted for half an hour about the lake, camping, the peace of the woods. He seemed genuinely cool. We parted as dusk fell. The next day unfolded surprisingly pleasantly. William came over mid-morning, brought peace offerings. He grinned, holding up a six-pack. We spent hours on the beach, beers in hand, talking music, work, life, sharing stories. The easy camaraderie felt natural, a rare connection forged in the wilderness. By late afternoon, relaxed and content, we retreated to our respective sites. Sitting by my crackling fire as stars emerged, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. William was the perfect unexpected camping companion. Maybe we'd even plan another trip. As the fire died to embers, I stood to douse it and head to bed. Movement caught my eye. William was walking around the lake again. Towards me, his own fire had died out an hour ago. I assumed he was asleep. He reached my fading fire ring. "Hey man, everything cool?" I asked. There was a split-second blankness in his eyes, a stiffness in his posture, before his familiar, easy smile snapped back into place. "Yeah, totally. Listen, I found something earlier. Back in the woods, seriously. Cool spot. Amazing view, especially right now with the stars. You gotta see it." The shift was subtle, but jarring. "Now kinda late, isn't it?" I hedged. "Dude, trust me," he insisted, enthusiasm suddenly intense, almost feverish. "It's like 5 minutes away. Totally worth it. You can't come all the way out here and miss this." His insistence felt off, a pressure that hadn't been there before. Reluctantly, curiosity, and a misplaced desire not to offend one out. All right. Lead the way." He set off briskly around the lake, not on the shore, but plunging straight into the tree line on his side. No path, just dense undergrowth and shadowed pines. I followed, my headlamp beam bouncing erratically. He moved with unnerving certainty, never hesitating, weaving through trees I could barely distinguish in the dark. This wasn't a found spot. He knew this route cold. My unease grew with every step. After what felt like much longer than 5 minutes, he slowed. "Here," he whispered, a strange excitement in his voice. He gestured ahead into a small clearing. "Check it out." I stepped past him, sweeping my light. Nestled in the center, by vines and moss, was an ancient decaying RV. Its windows were smashed. The aluminum siding rotted and rusted through in jagged holes. It looked like it had been dumped decades ago. "William, what is this?" I asked, turning back, my voice tight. The friendly mask was gone. His face was utterly blank, eyes cold and empty, reflecting my headlamp like an animal's. He didn't answer, he just stared. A metallic shriek ripped through the silence behind me. The RV's door, hanging by one hinge, was wrenched open. A dark shape lunged out. I didn't think I ran. I crashed through branches, thorns tearing at my clothes, blind terror propelling me. Behind me, I heard William shout, not surprise, but furious command, in the crashing pursuit of 2 sets of feet. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs buckled, deep into trackless woods. I hid, trembling, listening to their shouts fade as they searched the wrong direction. Dawn found me scratched, lost, and shivering. It took hours to find my bearings. Approaching the lake cautiously from the trees, heart in my throat, I scanned my campsite. It was empty. Utterly, completely empty. Tent, sleeping bag, cooler, chair, backpack, everything gone, as if I'd never been there. Only the cold ashes of my fire remained. I reported it to skeptical local police who found nothing. William and his accomplice vanished. The decaying RV wasn't a viewpoint. It was a lure, a trap. What they intended inside that rusted metal coffin, what they'd done to others who trusted a friendly face in the woods. ... Those are the nightmares that keep me awake. Long after the campfire's glow has faded. Story 7. The man under the bed extended the drive from Portland to Chicago stretched ahead. A daunting 3-day marathon. Wyoming, vast and empty, was day 1's challenge. Crossing the state line, the sky unleashed a furious blizzard. Snow swirled hypnotically, reducing the world to a white tunnel lit by my headlights. The planned stop was a tiny dot on the map, barely a town. Arriving after dark, the streets were deserted, buried under fresh powder, no open diners, no lights in windows. Following GPS, I turned onto an unplowed track leading into a desolate field. Headlights revealed a small boxy cabin huddled under a thick mantle of snow. Sentinel pines, heavy with white, standing guard in the front yard. I parked beside it, the snow crunching loudly under my boots. The keypad lock worked, and I stumbled into blessed warmth. The cabin was tiny, maybe 500 square feet. One room served as a combined living area, with a separate door leading to a small bedroom and an even smaller attached bathroom. Spartan, but clean and warm. I dropped my bag by the bed, kicked off my snowy boots, and sank onto the lumpy couch with a groan. The drive had been brutal. Then, from the bedroom, a distinct, heavy thump, like something solid hitting the floor. I sat bolt upright, straining my ears. Silence. Settling. I muttered unconvinced. I walked to the bedroom door, flicked on the light. Everything looked normal. Bed made. Bag where I left it. I checked the bathroom empty. The only other feature was a narrow closet door beside the bed. I tried the handle. Locked firmly. A jolt of unease shot through me. Why lock an empty closet? Maybe storage for the owner. With no other explanation, I forced myself back to the couch, trying to ignore the prickle on my neck. 15 minutes later, restless, I went to the small window overlooking the front yard. Beyond the headlights' glow, the world was a black and white void, snow still falling relentlessly. Eerily dark, eerily quiet. I snapped the blinds shut, turning back towards the couch. Movement in the bedroom doorway. A swift, dark shadow flitting across the slice of light spilling into the living room. My breath caught. Had I seen it? Heart pounding, I crept back to the bedroom doorway, listening intently. Nothing. Flicking the light on again. I scanned bed, bathroom door ajar, closet door ... still closed. But the feeling of wrongness intensified, centered on that locked closet. Steeling myself, I grasped the handle again. This time, it turned smoothly. Unlocked, I pulled it open. Empty. Just bare shelves and a rod. Utterly, innocently empty. Confusion warred with relief. Maybe I imagined the shadow, the thump. Then, a soft scuff sounded behind me. I turned slowly. A man stood in the bathroom doorway, not emerging, just ... there. He was huge, easily sick, but he looked broken. Deep scratches raked his face and neck. His clothes were torn and filthy, soaked with what looked like melted snow and mud. His eyes were hollow, exhausted, holding a terrifying emptiness. He didn't look at me. He didn't seem to register my presence at all. He simply stepped into the bedroom, moved with surprising silence to the bed, and knelt down. From the deep shadows beneath the bed frame, he dragged out a large, dirty, military-style duffel bag. It looked heavy. He stood, slung the bag over his shoulder with a grunt, and walked straight past me, through the living room, and out the front door without a backward glance. I stood frozen, watching through the window as his massive form trudged through the deep snow, vanishing into the blizzard's embrace like a phantom. Police later spoke only to the host, offering no explanation. The unlocked closet, the man appearing from the bathroom when the closet was empty, the bag hidden under the bed, the scratches, ... the utter desolation in his eyes, ... Was he hiding? Running had he been locked in that closet? And what was in that bag? The blizzard swallowed him whole, leaving only questions and the chilling certainty that while I sat on the couch, a wounded giant had been silently hiding mere feet away, inches below me, holding his breath in the dark. Story 8. The delivery, 2-room 232 extended DoorDash was just a side hustle, maybe 10 to 15 hours a week, mostly late nights when the roads were quiet. This particular shift was winding down around 1 a.m. when a small fast food order pinged, drop off Summit View Business Park, Building C, an office address, not unusual for night workers. The GPS led me across town to a small 2-story office complex. Pulling into the parking lot, I was struck by the utter emptiness. No cars, not a single one. No lights in any windows, except a single, stark fluorescent bar glowing above the main entrance. The lot behind the building, visible as I drove around, was equally deserted. An eerie stillness hung in the humid night air. I parked near the entrance, grabbed the greasy paper bag, and checked the app. Enter main hallway. Leave bag outside room 232. Specific, annoying but standard procedure. The glass front door was unlocked. Pushing it open, I stepped into a wide, sterile hallway. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh, flat light on rows of identical dark wood doors, all closed, labeled with brass numbers 102, 104, 106. The silence was absolute, unnerving. No distant printers, no muffled conversations, just the electric hum and my own echoing footsteps. Room 232 would be upstairs. Midway down the hall, a doorway marked stairs stood propped open by a rubber doorstop. Beyond it, darkness, pure, impenetrable, black. The stairs themselves were invisible. No light spilled from above. I stood at the threshold, peering up into the void. The silence pressed in, suddenly heavy, threatening. A cold prickle ran down my spine. This felt wrong, deeply wrong. Following instructions blindly seemed monumentally stupid. I took a step back into the lit hallway. The door directly opposite the stairwell, labeled 110, swung open silently. A man stepped out, late 20s, maybe, wearing jeans, a graphic tee, and a worn leather jacket, decidedly not office attire. He positioned himself squarely in the hallway, blocking my path back to the exit. His eyes, sharp and assessing, locked onto mine. Then, without a word, he pointed past me, his finger stabbing towards the dark stairwell. 232's up there, he stated flatly, his voice devoid of inflection. I nodded, frozen. He didn't move. Neither did I. The silence stretched, thick with tension. His gaze wasn't just unfriendly. It was cold, calculating, holding a simmering intensity that felt like suppressed anger. The paper bag in my hand felt absurdly flimsy. This wasn't about delivery instructions anymore. This was a trap. After what felt like minutes, I made a decision. I slowly bent down, placed the bag on the polished floor tiles, and straightened up, never breaking eye contact. Right there's fine, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I took a deliberate step sideways, then another, edging around him towards the exit. He didn't react, didn't follow my movement. His eyes remained fixed on the spot where I'd been standing. As I pushed through the front door into the cool night air, I heard it, the sharp, echoing sound of his footsteps entering the stairwell and climbing upwards into the darkness. I drove away fast, my hands shaking on the wheel. The police call came the next afternoon. Summit View reported a break-in overnight. Security cameras captured my car pulling in, me entering, and leaving. They traced my plates. When I came in for questioning, the detective showed me stills. The man I saw in the hallway, he was one of 3. The other 2 were clearly visible on the camera at the top of the dark stairwell, partially hidden, waiting. They disabled the stairwell light. My dropped bag was clearly visible on the floor near the stairs. The detective's words were grim. You made the right call leaving that bag. Several other deliveries were made to that building last night. Every other driver left their orders outside the front door. He didn't need to elaborate. The image was crystal clear. The man downstairs directing targets upwards into the waiting arms of his accomplices in the unlit stairwell. What they planned for anyone who climbed those stairs. What they might have done in the empty offices of room 232. Those questions hang in the air, unanswered. A chilling reminder of the darkness that waited just beyond the reach of the fluorescent lights.